Well, that was concerning. The Toronto Maple Leafs just had a press conference with CEO Keith Pelley, or as he would refer to himself, Keith Pellegrino. Dude, I don't know where to start. Usually these press conferences with executives as high up as Keith are mundane and boring and are just platitudes that offer nothing and don't tell you anything. To me, this told me everything I needed to know and everything he didn't. We could go through some of the quotes in terms of the greatest hits. I encourage you, don't take my word for it, okay? This is my review of what I saw. I encourage you to have your own take on this by going to the Maple Leafs YouTube channel and watching the whole thing. And if you think I'm being unfair after watching the whole thing yourself, then fine, that's great. I saw it as a minor catastrophe. The number one and most concerning thing near the beginning, so Keith Pelley fired Brad Treliving, who's the general manager of the Leafs. Now there's no one between Keith Pelley and basically the coaching staff. Yes, there is a temporary management team, and we learned about that. There's Brandon Pridham and Ryan Hardy, who are two assistant GMs who are going to work in tandem, kind of like how Kyle Dubas and Mark Hunter did in 2015. That's not unprecedented. That's pretty normal. And Keith reiterated many times that he's not there with the Leafs to be part of the day-to-day, which makes sense because his job is to watch over 6 professional sports teams, which is something that we've said for quite a while now is not tenable. Doesn't make any sense. How are you going to be the head of the Leafs, the Raptors, TFC, the Argos, the Marlies, and the 905, and a bunch of esports teams as well? How on earth is any one human being supposed to do that? The answer so far is they can't. And when he was talking about, oh, I'm not part of the day-to-day operations, brother, you can tell. When asked what went wrong for the Leafs this season, Keith Pelley says, we didn't see the train coming in reference to the Montreal Canadiens and Buffalo Sabres. First of all, really wish you had worded it differently because now you are going to give Sabres fans and Habs fans ammo for the next decade. Thanks a lot. Can't wait until they all have train decals to mock us all throughout the playoffs. Second of all, I can forgive you for not seeing this Buffalo Sabres run coming because I don't even think the Buffalo Sabres saw this Buffalo Sabres run coming. You didn't see the Montreal Canadiens coming? Do you know how out of touch you have to be with the National Hockey League to not know that the Montreal Canadiens, who made the playoffs last year, Keith, are one of the best up-and-coming teams in the entire league? They have 3 guys at least who are going to get Calder votes this year. They have the reigning Calder winner. Cole Caulfield hasn't even entered his prime. What do you mean you didn't see the Montreal Canadiens train? Today I learned that the Leafs CEO is a deer. That is the only possible way. You didn't see the Montreal Canadiens coming. You didn't. And then later, when talking about some of the young and up-and-coming players that the Montreal Canadiens have, he chose to name, no one forced him to, he chose to name a player who hasn't played for them yet in Michael Hage. Only he didn't call him Michael Hage. He called him Michael Hagee. That's one of the top prospects in the sport. And then he was talking about a guy who the Leafs just recently signed, one of the top college free agents going, in Vinny Borghini. Here's the problem, bibbity bobbity. His name is Vinny Borghese. Don't act like you know the Habs prospects. You don't even know the Leafs ones. They signed that guy like a week ago. How do you mess that up? You mess it up because you got caught hot dogging it. And if you think that I'm maybe overreacting to him mispronouncing in the most Italian way one of the Leafs' new prospects, then you aren't getting the point. I know he's not involved in the minutia of this team. He said he's not involved in the minutia of this team. But my question in response is, who the hell is? Additionally, maybe we should get someone who is. Additionally, maybe that person is not someone who has to watch over 6 holy smoking sports teams. Sorry, that's just the first quote. Let me move on. Here's another one. Keith Pelley. I think Craig Berube is the head coach. That's correct. Good job. And that is determined by the GM or the head of hockey operations. That's not determined by myself. He will work closer with Brandon Pridham and Ryan Hardy. So the future of Craig Berube was asked about, and he gave a very non-committal answer. Whoever is in charge next, whoever that happens to be, they get to decide Craig Berube's fate. And until then, he's just the head coach. Oh, okay, great. So like, who's that going to be? Is that going to be like the GM or the president of hockey ops or a guy who does both? And when he was asked that question several times, he was like, I don't know. He doesn't know what the structure is going to be. Then later on, very near the end of the press conference, he was asked, well, was it a mistake to fire Brendan Shanahan and then not hire a replacement? And he said no, because there's no right or wrong way to build a management group. Can I ask a harsh question? How the hell would you know? Like, with all due respect, I know this guy's the CEO of MLSE. He has experience with the European Golf Tour, which, what does that have to do with a professional sports team, right? What does that have to do with, I think we can agree that hockey and basketball and soccer/football and soccer and football are a little different than the European Golf Tour. And he has experience running the Toronto Argonauts. And can I offer an opinion that's a little harsh? It's nothing against the CFL. The CFL is great. It's a great product. A lot of people love it. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a step below the NHL, though, eh? And the MLS and even NBA, it's below a lot of things. It's essentially semi-pro. A lot of these guys have jobs, man. It's a top-tier semi-pro, but come on. So there's no right or wrong way to build a management. Who told you that? I hope it wasn't you, because you don't have the experience. One of the parts that really made me uncomfortable was right at the beginning, before he was even asked a question. Something that Keith Pelley wanted to get out of the way right away, before he was even asked anything, seemed to be tackling the notion that I'm extrapolating based on what he said. Rogers is cheap because they won't hire the right people, and they didn't hire a replacement for Shanahan. And since Keith Pelley has come in, he's made many cuts to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't think that came from Keith. This is just my theory, but I don't think that came from Keith. I think it came from ownership, and I don't think billionaires who have a real propensity to be cheap like being called cheap. Well, suggestion, literally put your money where your mouth is. Use the financial might of the Toronto Maple Leafs and start pushing teams around. Because another quote from Keith Pelley, I'm comfortable doing anything that gives the Toronto Maple Leafs the best chance to win the Stanley Cup. Period. End of story. And that's great. And that's wonderful. What about your boss? Also talked about was tanking. Keith Pelley says he is borderline offended to be asked if the Leafs should be trying to lose enough games to get into the bottom 5 this season. We will not tank. I think that's a whole lot of bluster. You're not involved in the minutia, Keith. You said that. Your team sold at the deadline. What do you think tanking is exactly? You traded a bunch of players that could help you now for a bunch of assets that will not help you now. They'll help you later, ideally, if you use them right. What do you think tanking is? That has "we're not here to sell jerseys" written all over it. You can't slogan your way out of this, Keith. At best, it gets you a few days of goodwill, but at the end of the day, win some games. Well, win games that matter. Right now, it's tank time, and you don't have much a say in whether or not the team wins or loses games. You don't even know their names, dude. Regarding the core and regarding a potential rebuild, Keith Pelley says he doesn't foresee a rebuild for the Leafs because they already have foundational pieces in place. Again, I think he's talking out of his bottom. You're not involved in the day-to-day minutia. There currently isn't a GM. There currently isn't a president of hockey ops. What are you talking about? So, okay, you're not there for the day-to-day operations and the minutia. You're not there to sell jerseys, and I'm curious about what you are there to do. Well, we're there to win hockey games and win championships. Okay. How are you gonna do that, buddy? Come here. I got nothing encouraging from that press conference. All I got from that is they felt pressure to fire Brad Treliving, which, like, good. They should have, because it was kind of the right decision to make. I have no real picture of what on earth they're going to do going forward. I don't know what that word salad was regarding AI and Eric Tulsky, and that didn't need to be in there. That was just filling your essay to hit the word count. I have no idea what the structure of this team is going to look like going forward. I have no idea who they're going to hire. I have no idea who's going to be on this team going forward. I have no idea who's at the wheel. Who's at the wheel? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. That's kind of where we're at with this management team. I was shouting this from the rooftop for a long time that they needed a change. And he's talking about they're starting a search. Good Lord. I know it's spilt milk, but this process should have started a long time ago. They're in trouble. You think they're in trouble now? Just wait until the Habs call up Michael Hagee. I don't know. Maybe I'm being harsh. Again, I encourage you to go and watch the whole press conference. I thought that was really, really poor from the guy who's supposed to be the head of the ship. And I thought that was really discouraging as a fan. They've taken the right steps in terms of admitting they have a problem. And now there's a bit of a blank slate. And we're all encouraged and excited by the unknown. Hey, maybe they'll hire a new guy to be president or GM or both. They won't tell us. And maybe that person will be really smart. What reason is there to believe from the past couple of years that Keith Pelley has been here and from that press conference, what reason is there to believe they have any idea what they're doing? I'll leave you with that question. But for now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you liked this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. You should have just called him Vinny Calzone. I can't believe you said Vinny Borghini.